So, hello everybody, and welcome back to our second episode of the Oracle. Um, we have gone away and we've thought a little bit, and I think we'll be presenting this show in a slightly different way. I think we're going to do it in three acts, and the theming is going to be future, present, and then past. And we start with the future because it's the most interesting, right? It's the part that is yet unknown, and we get to go back and be happy about if we get it right. So, I think most people want to know what they think we think will happen, right? First, so we're gonna start with the playoffs of ESL Pro League, season 20, and the first matchup we have is Vitality versus Eternal Fire. What do you think, Ted? What do you think I'm gonna say about this one?
Vitality versus Eternal Fire.
Hmm.
Uh, Clearly Vitality's going to win this. There's no way in hell they lose this.
You gotta believe it, right?
Like
I mean,
it would,
Eternal
it
Fire
would
have
have
done
to
well to
be,
get here, but yes,
it would have
I
to be like divine intervention on like making Jame crash level
I think
in
like
order to
it's
like
beyond
lose this
divine
game.
intervention. It's like Zero would have to like actually just I don't know down like white spirits before the game or something and go
Yeah,
blind.
they have to start team killing, just
Like it's gonna have to be
trolling.
a throw if they lose.
Yeah, there's no
Like
way they lose this.
I mean, Eternal Fire have an outside chance of having like some very strong firepower, even in this matchup. Though, I'll say like Xantares has been great. Wucadia has been a bit better. Like he was good at the start of the year, and then he kind of wasn't for a while, and he looks a bit better this tournament. And Wogzik has also been here for them when have needed him, and has been very serviceable. This tournament particularly. Um, Obviously, though, I'm saying all that just to tear it all down because Ziwu's just gonna be the best player. Like Xantares could be, but Ziwu probably will be, and that's just the difference. And then Spinks is great, like Flames is great. I just believe like Apex is calling a great game right now. It's Apex like hitting his stride again, I think.
Mhm.
And I think like ultimately this team lives and dies by Zero, of course, but it also lives and dies by Apex a lot, in my opinion. I think he's a big driver in the team. He's the impetus of the team. He's not the most skilled player. He's not the one who will do, do the action that wins them the game the most often, but he's the one who will tell you which action will win you the game the most often. And when he's really in his groove and like can get his boys moving on what he's saying and is saying the right stuff. I just think he's such a like difference maker in a team that seemingly lacks voices within it.
Mhm. Well, me personally, I would say Vitality's probably the favorite to win this tournament. Just like looking at how the brackets break down, everyone's performances so far.
Yeah.
It's pretty much Vitality. If you want to put any money on it, you're going to choose Vitality for this one. It's just the most. If they play this
Yeah.
tournament 10 times over, Vitality's going to win it more than other people are.
Yes, and yeah, particularly. I mean, it's not that anyone in the lower semi can or the other semi can't um win the tournament as well, and they definitely can. It's just that Vitality have the best chance to get to the final out of anyone
By far.
by a long shot. So in that sense, they're going to get if they can get to the final the most times, they should be the team that wins the most times. They've recently won. They look in form to win. I believe they're
Mm.
winning. Like of course I do. They just won Cologne. I've always been a fan of Vitality and believe that their players are good enough to do it. It's always a disappointment when they can't, and I just think this is where they're gonna just trot off a few, and Ziwu gets to take home as number one this year, because
Yep.
like he probably isn't the front runner right now, but if he wins this tournament and does a good showing while doing it, like to me, like he will be showing the same kind of things that Donk and Manasi are
Yeah.
showing
If he
or
finishes
have
this
shown.
year strong, he could definitely beat them at the finish line.
He could. He really could. Like, there's
He's
enough
he's sprinting.
runway for it.
Yeah. There's people ahead of him right now, but he's running faster than them currently. Like
Yes. Yeah.
um, but like just looking at the way this bracket breaks down, Vitality can beat they're definitely going to beat Eternal Fire. I would be shocked if they didn't. But
Yeah.
they can beat M80 or MIBR. It
Yeah,
doesn't
I mean, it's
matter
a
who wins
similar.
that.
If anything, I think Eternal Fire is a harder game. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
not on form. Like these teams have also played very well. I'd say MIBR had a really good run. M80 obviously took on their like the home team in complexity and won. Um, I don't know. I think though personally, Eternal Fire is way more challenging as a team.
Mhm.
Like it's the difference between like a team that is top 10 and top 20 or 30. I'm not even sure. Like if they're beating Eternal Fire, they're beating the next one most likely, unless they
Oh,
really
sure.
underestimate them or fall apart. In like I just don't see it though.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
not
Vitality are in the
overlooking.
final.
This is a serious team. They don't like make mistakes like that.
Surely not.
They
And
don't.
if they do, it's just like PR nightmare all over again.
Yeah.
Um, but if
At this
if we're
point, they're
both
fed up.
in
They want to win.
agreement here, right? We know Vitality's in the final. You're saying they could win the tournament, which is definitely the prediction I'm going to make, having seen the playoffs brackets. I think they're
I think
winning.
statistically, yes. Statistically, yes, they are definitely the favorites to win the tournament. But looking over on the other side of the bracket,
It's a competitive
so
side, yeah,
yeah, so um, Vitality is making it through. It doesn't matter who wins out of MAT or MIBR.
yeah,
I would probably give the edge to MIBR just based
yeah,
on recent form and who they have on their team. But that's not one I'm super like. I don't really care who wins that because Vitality is going to beat them anyway.
yeah. They are just the feed, aren't they?
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily big fans of either team. But looking over on the other side of the bracket, we have Navi, Spirit, G2, and Liquid.
Yeah.
I think on a good day, any one of these teams could at least give Vitality a good chance, like
Oh,
a good
absolutely. I
run
think
for their
all
money.
of these teams would give them a good. I think Liquid is the least likely to give them a good game.
Yeah, least
Um,
likely, but still,
The other
I
three
think.
basically have firepower to win tournaments as well. And in the Navi, it's more like they have overall firepower. They can have like three players play well enough to win a game or win a series against any of these teams as well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So okay, so I'm gonna take a gander and say you think G2 is gonna beat Liquid.
Oh, I hope so. Um, I quite like Liquid as a team. I like the players on it. I like their play style generally.
Yeah,
I'm happy Akindar picked it up today, but I would like to see G2 bring this home. I wanted to see them step into the server. I would like to see a bit more tactical depth out of G2, just a bit more of like floor raising,
yeah,
because like God knows that their ceiling has no limits, but like their floor also seems to have no limits. So if we could see a bit more of like a structure implemented into this team over the next coming months, I would be much more appreciative with it. But I have to believe in G2. I think they're going to take this across the line.
yeah. I
Look,
mean, Liquid have looked very good. They
they've looked
certainly
very good,
they
especially
certainly
today
yeah.
in complexity game.
Especially against complexity. I mean, they have the firepower maybe to take it over the line. I just don't expect them to have the poise, though.
Hmm.
I mean, they're both new lineups to be fair.
Hmm.
In but like they both changed IGL now that I think about it. Actually,
Hmm.
um, but I've got to believe that Monasi and Nico are better than Ultimate and what Yakinda Twists.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter which one really,
yeah.
but I
I'd
just
be
gotta
really
believe they're
disappointed if
better.
G2 don't win this. It would be a sign of things to come. Like if G2 don't win this game, like they've kind of given up, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think they're giving up. I'm
No,
sure
no,
they're
but
going to
like
try
obviously
very
they
hard,
haven't.
but
They're gonna try very hard, but like I'm just not. I'll be very worried for the team, especially with like the news that
it would
Nico's
become
leaving, things like
questionable
that.
if this would be an elite roster if they
Yeah,
lost to this game, right?
yeah, exactly.
Because Liquid is not in an elite roster. They're like a borderline to make an elite roster. They're not there.
Hmm.
They're not. I
Yeah,
wouldn't consider them any kind of favorite to win a tournament. Really, I think they
yeah.
could be. They just aren't though.
It's a shame they're against G2 in the quarters because
Yeah.
I would say I'm a Liquid fan. I would like to see them go farther in. I want to see them succeed, but I want to see G2 succeed even more. So it has to be done. I have to sacrifice them
Yeah.
for the
I
G2
mean, I
gods. So
think
I'm praying
they
that
got a bit
G2
unlucky.
actually
If
show
they'd
up.
faced MIBR or M80,
Yeah. The
actually
fact that
no,
those two are
yeah,
paired up with each other in the quarters is the
it's
fact
a
that
bit
one of
crazy.
those two is guaranteed for the semis is a bit ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they won the games, I guess.
They
So
did win the games. Like it's how the tournament works. Like you can't change anything. It's just strange to me.
it is. It is. And yeah, I mean, they could have been up against MIBR. That is a
Mhm.
reality that could have happened. But
It's all the luck of
ultimately,
the draw.
MIBR won the games to get through to the higher position. But I think that means that the most interesting first round matchup for both of us is then Navi and Spirit, because I would say they're both teams that would could win the tournament. They're
But
like genuine champion contenders against each other in the first round of the playoffs, and I think um, that this is definitely one that people are going to have differing opinions on because Navi are probably in the better current form and have shown much more recently
mhm,
since the player break, and Spirit have been like whack since the player break. Like this
mhm,
is already their best result of this season, right?
mhm,
Um, so it's an interesting one. I think um, I personally would be going Navi here. Um,
mhm,
I don't know. People might think I'm a bit of a Spirit hater, and like in some ways I am, and I won't deny it. But I think I'm also a Spirit hater because I don't think they're completely a world class roster. They just have like world class pieces in this team, and they have maybe the most important world class pieces. Orpa and Star Rifler. They've got
mhm,
like some of the strongest in the whole world, and with those, you can build a lot. But I'm just not convinced right now of the rest of the roster. Um, I think they looked much better as a roster at Katowice than they do now on like,
mhm.
recently.
Yeah.
Like it's feeling like they're a bit more of a one trick. They rely really heavy on Donk and Shiro, and if Donk and Shiro aren't there, they're just not gonna win.
Oh,
Um,
certainly. Yeah.
and then I feel like Navi is like they're just they're a team at like the peak of professionalism. They've got Blade as a coach. He's probably running crazy masterclass game in there. I mean, I
Mhm,
just they're in the better form now, but I also just think they're a really hard team to beat. Like skill wise, they're not like the best team, but the average skill of each player in the team is quite high, and then they're calling really well and they're playing really smart, and it just makes
mhm,
them a really hard team to beat. They're kind of like I don't know, it's probably an unfair comparison because they're maybe better, but they kind of remind me of like the Virtus Pro that won the major. Like
mhm,
they're really canny team. They're like they play better than the names like you expect of the names, and maybe it's just really shrewd pickups, but those names haven't earned the reputations of like more skilled teams players because they haven't done that for as long or against enough opposition um to warrant it. So I think Navi is my pick. I just think they're gonna have the edge, like in terms of like the reads and the calls and then the vetoes probably and like the whole mind game aspect of CS. I just believe Navi is a better team at that.
mhm,
Even if I think Shiro and Donk are like far and away the best players in the server. Like Wonderful was quite a bit behind that, you know,
mhm,
if that's who you think Navi's best player would be. And then Bit like has ceiling to hit something like that, but just isn't gonna be as consistent as Donk Shiro. So like maybe
mhm.
he could turn up and then just cruise the series, but like,
That's
mm,
not what Navi's set up to do, though.
yeah,
Like they can do that, but it's not what they rely on. I think Navi's got the team element much more than Spirit does, particularly at the moment. I
yeah,
think if we went back a few months, maybe I would like definitely give the edge to Spirit, but in current form, I'd say Navi. Um, so I think Navi's team element's going to get them across the line here. I think Donkenshire are going to try pretty hard. They're going to do a good job. They're going to make it close, but I think just it's going to be a 5 versus 2, basically.
yeah. Well, I mean, like if I put percentages on this game, right? Like the worst it could be for Spirit is 40-60. It's probably better than that. It's probably more like 55-45 or something.
The
What are the betting
HLTV
odds?
betting odds actually are exactly even.
50-50.
With 2.1, 2.1 on the betting odds on HLTV.
I don't think it's 50-50. Like
That's what
Navi
the
have
odds say.
I
I
get
don't think
that.
so. I think Navi is definitely the favorite in my
Like
opinion.
Navi have made they won a tournament, they made a final of a tournament, like back to back, like just at Cologne, they lost the most epic final we've seen so far in CS2 to Vitality. And obviously I'm a fan of that game, but it was so close. It was like every map was like, to the limit, like I just
Yeah, the
can't
betting
yeah,
odds on Betway Esports, the betting odds are even for Navi
really
for Spirit
interesting. I mean,
for
Donkey's
like the
obviously in
whole
amazing form
overall.
this tournament. So if you're trying to ride current form, like in this event, then maybe you could say Spirit haven't, maybe even. No, I don't think they even though. I don't think they
Yeah,
are. I think Navi like will win about 55% of the time they play. Maybe 57 could be like somewhere between
yeah.
55 and 60, but not 60. Probably
Me
55 to
like
57.
honestly, like I'm not a betting guy, but honestly, I'm seeing that I might put a bet on Navi. Like,
Yeah, like honestly,
like
like I
those
don't
odds don't
think
make
that
sense. That's
makes sense
that's
to
wrong.
me. Like that
Navi's definitely the favorites for this game.
Navi is probably the best team in the world right now, if not the second best team in the world right now.
Yes, certainly.
Spirit are like very much could be that and are not showing us that right now. They
Hmm.
could,
Currently.
but they're just not. So I don't know. I think it's a Navi. I think we have a Navi Vitality rematch in the final. That's what I
Okay.
think could happen. I
Well, I'm
I
just gonna
yeah,
blindly say G2's making it to the grand final.
of course. No, I would be insulted if you didn't. Um I think like the thing I've seen out of like I'm basing G2 losing to Navi on what I saw before. Okay, I saw them lose in that esports World Cup, ESWC, I guess. I saw them. Did they also lose at Cologne? They lost to Maus at Cologne. They didn't lose to
Yes.
Navi, but Navi then beat Maus was what happened after. So that also
Yeah.
doesn't really like to me, like Mao's a really well drilled team. But what that kind of shows me is that Navi were even better drilled team, you know? And then they've also beaten G2 before. So I
Yeah.
think that's the
Well,
reason. I don't think G2 are like this is a similar like odds in terms of the Spirit Navi game. I'd say it's pretty much the same odds for me for G2 Navi. I'm just leaning Navi as well because I think they play a more consistent brand of CS.
yeah. They have a much higher floor. Um,
Yes. Yeah,
I
exactly. Yeah.
think both these matchups out the get go, Liquid definitely has the chance to beat G2, but it all relies on G2.
Yeah.
Like which G2 shows up to play completely determines who wins this tournament. Because we could have the G2 that did it in Dallas, where they had a fucking useless Stewie stand-in and Nexa anchoring them down. Like that wasn't that tournament alone was 3v5. They have
Yeah.
proven that they have those three players can do it. And now they have Malbs in the mix as well. So it all depends which G2 shows up to play that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm definitely taking G2 to beat Liquid. I think that is a much of a lock, like very much a lock in.
Yeah.
I'm choosing Navi to beat Spirit because Spirit doesn't seem to be in the best form currently. They've shown that they are weak. They can lose in this tournament already.
Yeah.
Whereas I believe Navi went straight through.
Navi 8 cleaned it, yeah.
Yeah, Navi cleaned it. They just went straight through. That showed no weakness. So I think Navi's definitely taking it. And then Navi does seem to be G2's like kryptonite almost
Yeah. I
in the
think
way that
G2
they
has
play.
I feel like my theory is that G2 has a kryptonite. G2's kryptonite is like very structured teams with
Yeah,
like
very structured
solid.
teams with a
Yeah.
if they have proper spacing
Yeah.
so that one person can't run into the site and get four 1v1s, then in that case G2 can't necessarily win. Because if Nico goes into the site on Ancient, let's say, or Malbs goes into the site on Ancient, and there's three guys, there's one guy cave, one guy long, one guy short. If their spacing isn't correct and they're not peeking off of each other, then the players on G2 are good enough to just go bang, bang, bang
Yeah.
if they get the chance to do it in a row. But if while he's fighting the first guy, one or two other guys peek as well before he even has the chance to flick his crosshair over, then he's getting maximum one and he's completely nullified. So team spacing, it doesn't really matter how good you are as long as you're good enough,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Where as long as your team spacing is together enough, you can definitely take out a team like G2 because they don't have that in the same regard. They they will either spray all of you down or you kill them immediately, essentially. There's
Yeah.
no real trade opportunities. There's no there's a lot of flashbangs. Like when they're playing in a good game and they're like feeling it and they're in their flow state, they're all flashing for each other, good communication. But that communication goes out the window quite often, especially when they're on the back foot. Like if they feel the pressure, they start putting the pressure on themselves even more because they are aware of how good they are.
Yeah.
It's like the curse of G2. They're just so talented that they believe that they have to win because anything other than that is a disappointment.
Yeah.
They haven't played to their potential, essentially, if they don't win the entire tournament. So then they put all this pressure on themselves the minute that they start feeling any pressure at all.
Yeah.
And team elements like that can really just build the pressure and build the pressure and build the pressure. And people like Alexi B know exactly what to do with that pressure as well.
Yeah.
So that's why G2's kryptonite are teams like Maus and Navi when they're playing in their good team elements.
I think it's the advantage of teams that have. I think the advantage generally of more tactical or teams is that they're more consistent.
Oh,
You know,
certainly. That's
um,
that's 100%. Like that's a law. I would
yeah,
like it's a law of physics.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Like
It's less entropy, right?
yeah,
Um,
like you just can't that I don't get why G2 like over all the years they've never even really given it a shot to make us like have some sort of baseline structure that will just raise their floor because they've just shot for the maximum ceiling possible without really caring about the bottom.
yeah.
It doesn't matter who they have on their team. Like going back to the Kenny S days, it was true. Like it's always been the case. Even now, Carlos is gone. Like Carlos was an amazing talent scout. He picked up Monacy, like he did all these things for the team. But like even since then, it's just not. No one's decided to make this more in the line of like a Navi or a Mouse, where there's just some because those teams have really talented players, especially Mouse. Like Jimpat's incredible,
Yeah.
but they have the structure to allow them to be consistent and be like persistent
Okay,
almost. Like you can never knock
I
them
have a
out.
theory about this as well though. Like if you look at Mao's, like okay, this is like a principle I have in general when I view teams, right? Is like so Mao's is a really great example. And what was the other team you listed?
Navi.
Navi. They're both actually great examples of this because if you look at the roster, like who on the roster was anybody before that roster?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
You know, like they're coming up together. If you look at heroics, Cadian, like with heroic last year, if you look like back
Another great
like
example, yeah.
Astralis when they came up, they were somebody, but they weren't champions yet. The expectation wasn't just pure championships. That's what they're aiming for, but it's not something
Yeah.
they had experienced often before.
Device
So
had a reputation of choking.
right,
Like,
exactly. Like they were all elite for a long time before they actually got over the hump. Right, we're kind of seeing that out of Miles now, actually. Um, and what I'd say is it's like it's easier to make people cooperate when they
oh
haven't
yeah,
got
certainly.
high expectations of themselves, of what the performance that they have to have. You know, for them it's like early in their career, so they're a bit more chill, they're a bit more laid back about it, right?
Well, yeah, they don't have the egos yet to like
Yes,
demand
yeah, that's
things.
yeah,
Whereas like people like Nico and Monacy, they know their worth, you know? I don't think Monacy is really this type of guy that would like be toxic and like make demands like that. From everything I've seen, he seems like a very level-headed, reasonable guy. Like basically, he's the ideal professional. Just like he hasn't made one slip up in all the scrutiny he's been under.
yeah.
Like
Very rare, by the way.
He's a Russian player during the Russian-Ukraine war, and he has never said one thing wrong.
Which is
Like
insane. Like,
there's never been any controversy about
yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
Zontix is getting shit, and he's just a Ukrainian guy on a Russian team. Like Monesi has just played everything perfectly, but like, oh, like the egos on the team and just like there's all these different elements that come into play. Whereas when they're people like Heroic, especially, they're moldable. They're more susceptible to like actually buying into how the team's going to play. There's not all these ideas, all these people saying like, no, actually, I know the best thing to do.
Yeah,
Like, there's no competition in that way.
yeah. Well, I
Uh,
also think it's kind of like if you look at FaZe, even now that I think about it, like FaZe are made men now. But if you look at this iteration of FaZe that actually won in the end, like they're also people that came up under Carrigan that weren't anybody before they met this guy, kind of thing. Or not anybody, but they weren't who they are now before they met Carrigan. And like that in that way, he had like all the buy-in. And then you see recently that like he had to go and be more micromanagey because it wasn't working out for them. And maybe that's his evolution of giving them more trust as they were building up. But maybe it's also like they're not as bought in. Like they think of themselves as top players that can perform at the top level and win
yeah,
championships, and that they know what they're talking about as well. And it's very hard
yeah,
for us to have the insight of which one it is, but it's gonna be one of them.
yeah. Good luck telling Nico that he made a mistake.
Right? I mean,
Like,
he never made a mistake. What do you mean?
yeah, like if you're on a team with him and you think that he pushed when he shouldn't have pushed and he got too greedy, and you try and like mention that to him, and you're the new guy on the team, like
I
imagine
Yeah,
being Nexa or
yeah.
someone trying, or Nexa or Hooksy trying to be like, hey Nico, how about you play like this? How about you not do that in the like? You can't micromanage this guy.
No.
Like,
He's a made man already, right? Like
yeah,
he has self belief that he
yeah,
knows what he's doing, and pride, right? He's got pride and
and
ego
he's
too.
got all the reason to
Of
have those things.
course,
Like, he's earned it, but it doesn't like give itself to making a good, consistent team.
yeah,
Like, what I would want from G2 is really like prime phase is the kind of team that I want G2 to be, where they have these star players, they have these players that can pop off, and they're in a system that allows them to pop off. But there are still those set plays, those gimmick plays, those like mid-round calls, things like that. That's what I want from. I want a Carrigan like IGL on G2. I don't think they're going to get Carrigan. I don't think that's possible. I think Carrigan's
I
if we
mean,
could get him,
Faze ain't looking like Faze right now.
if
Anyway,
if
we'll get to that.
Carrigan
We'll
did
get to
get
that.
picked up, I would really like that. But he is towards the end of his career. Like, he's kind of anchoring phase. He's one of the reasons they're losing at the moment. But like Carrigan a few years ago, that player, like that's I would like a Shuhei, something like that, because G2 right now is just it almost feels like flip side fate, like simple, you know?
Right.
Just it's just a shit team that has incredible talent. Like, they've just thrown shit at a wall and
I don't know.
somehow they have
You know what
like,
team it reminds me of the most? I feel like it's a bit envious.
oh, it's yeah, well that's they bought the envious lineup. It's
Right,
never
but
changed.
but it's a very different lineup now. No
It's
one's even
no,
there from the originals, but
no, but
like the
the vibe
skills,
has never changed.
yeah.
Like, it's been the exact same vibe since the envious days. I think I said it on the last podcast that it has just been this curse of ever since they bought the envious lineup, it's just been the exact same feeling of just like you could win or you could lose. Like,
Yeah.
there's no predicting it. Like, I went on like a tangent last time about how you should never place a bet on G2
Yeah, which was
because
so funny, by the way. I love
like
that.
just it was ridiculous. Like, because you shouldn't. Like, they always they can lose to anyone, they can beat anyone.
Yeah.
Like, you just it's ridiculous at the end of the day. And it's always been the same thing. So you bringing up envious is exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same team structure. They've never tried to change the team structure. The all like everyone's changed. There's no MBK anymore. He's not around. Kenny S is gone. Like, there's no one on the same team. It's not even French anymore. Like, but if you watch the games and you took the names off of it and you're like, what does this feel like? Like, it's the same team basically.
Yeah. Well, I think I see it as a consequence of like um player made moves a lot,
Mm.
you know?
Oh yeah.
As much as like Nico's tried to like separate himself from making the moves, and maybe it's true. Like who knows? But what doesn't feel like it's the case is that there's like a coherent man behind the scenes that's making coherent moves for G2, and you know putting his foot down whenever necessary to correct the ideas of these players that they think they have all the control, but actually there's someone that is controlling what's happening. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like some player annoys some other player and they're gone, and or some player is from the same place as some other player and they
Yeah,
like the look of them, so now they're going to be on the team. And like
yeah.
you look at these rosters a lot of the like over the history, and can you really say the moves were like GM'd really smart shrewd moves all the time? Or is it just
Yeah.
like kind of whatever the players think is right, and then basically go with that most of the time, unless it's completely ridiculous.
Besides being the first one to buy Monacy,
Yeah.
because obviously that was
Oh,
like
fantastic pickup. Yeah.
fantastic pickup. Like you had to be that one. And G2 wouldn't even. I don't even know what G2 would look like if they
Malbs
didn't
as
make that
well.
pickup. Malbs is a great pickup, but like that's a bit. That was just like the old days where they just got beaten by him, so they bought him. Like
They have a good player that managed to beat us. What if he
yeah,
was on our team? It's like,
yeah,
yeah,
just
well, what if, yeah.
yes, that's real smart, you know. Like
Yeah. Real intelligent, shrewd eye for the pickup. Yeah.
yeah. Whereas like Monacy was an amazing pickup, but like JKS being kicked for God knows what reason.
Yeah.
Um, Nexa being picked up because he's friends with Hunter.
Yeah.
Like this is G2. Like when was the last time G2 was outside the top 10 or even
Yeah.
top 8? Like this isn't like your FPL team. You don't just like invite your friends to join when someone leaves. You know? Like
Yeah.
Nexa like he's an okay player in the role that he was in, but like he's not built for the role that they used him for. He was completely out of position. He wasn't skilled enough to do the roles that he was. Like I don't necessarily think that he is a tier 1 amazing player,
Yeah.
but they took a guy that would be average at best in my opinion in the tier 1 scene, and they put him in difficult ass positions that he's not used to playing. And then everyone's like, "Why is he shit?"
I don't know.
And it's
Like
like,
when I
so
watch
I
him
I have a lot
play,
of blame for him.
yeah,
Like I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He made a lot of mistakes, but
yeah.
like he's not that good. He wasn't picked up because he was good before. He's not like a Yakindar or a Grim where they were really good on the team before and then
He's a
got picked up
legacy
and fell off.
pickup, right? He's
He
because
was
they knew him and played with him before in the
yeah,
roster at a different
he was
time.
picked up purely because of like external factors, like not to do with the actual in-game element.
Right.
That's why he got picked up. He was like they didn't know what to do with JKS. So they like I think it was to do with the Nico going to
Leaving
Falcons.
potentially, the first time around.
And then basically they thought Nico was leaving, so they were gonna get rid of JKS too for some reason to like restructure the team. And then Nico didn't leave, but they didn't want to take JKS back because they'd already burned that bridge.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Fuck, who do we play with?" And then they didn't have the money from selling Nico to buy anyone, so they just had to call a friend. It was like you're on fucking Jeopardy. Just
Yeah. I mean that basically that seems like it is what has happened there, right?
yeah.
So
But then
yeah,
like how long
yeah.
he was on? Then like G2 just like suffered for like 6 months because of this. Like just a mess,
By
and
the
it
way,
just doesn't
on
make
the
any sense.
Nexa thing, I was as much as I absolutely hated watching him in G2. I don't know. He was my primary source of rage in watching G2 matches because
Mm,
it's a bit unfair if I think about it. Like because Hooksy was even worse, but I expected him to be even worse. So like somehow it annoyed me less. But like Nexa particularly, man, because he once was good in
yeah,
G2 before and played a vital role in that
yeah. I
team.
didn't hate him before.
No, and then he in this team it was just like I don't know. It's how could someone's sense for the game feel so off? Like in the
But
clutch,
that
like he plays so slow and then misses like the crucial moment that you had to like make a move if you wanted to win the round. And then he's just playing a very annoying save game, and it's like he's always
yeah,
like lurking on the like extremities of the map, and feels like he has no pressure against the opponent at all. And basically, where I was going with this was I wanted to say I personally don't dislike Nexa as a player, and I wanted him to do well, but it doesn't even look like he's done well since. Like he joined Kassad's Bleed team, and I don't know, like Bleed has looked a bit shit since that move, to be honest. And I don't know, it just seems like this. Maybe there's time to recover what was left of Nexa, but so far, that player has been gone for a long time. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
how can he? What you know? As you say, it was kind of like a last minute pickup, but like even then, it begs the question: like, how is a tier 1 roster picking up this guy and expecting to
yeah.
win?
Like,
Where's the
what are they
GM?
even thinking?
Where's the guy making the moves, doing intelligent like
It's
pickups? Like,
just a blunder. Like
yeah,
it's just a complete blunder that then just made G2 just lose money and not win any tournaments and piss. And also just like I feel really quite bad for Nexa.
yeah,
Like
he got rough
I
end
don't
of it.
I don't think he is a necessarily terrible player, but like I don't think he's not good. But like if you look at any other team, even G2 before when he was in it the first time, the roles that he was playing were completely different. Like the things that he was doing on his last stint with G2 were not things that he was meant to be doing. He was
Yeah,
literally just like they didn't know what else to do, so they were like, "You're going to do all the stuff we don't want to do." And he didn't even know how to do it. He'd never done it before. And then also, he's on G2, one of the most, if not the most like popular esports organizations across like multiple different games. And he's just getting the entire community and analysts and everyone on YouTube just being like, "You're shit. You don't
yeah,
deserve to be here."
yeah, yeah.
And like the I can't even imagine the pressure. Like,
You could, because at some point in that roster, you could tell, like beyond, like in the beginning, it's like he still had a chance he could get better
yeah,
again, right? But then you could tell at some point, like if, maybe a few months in, like 2 3 months in, like it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter what he's doing in the server to improve. Like it's in his head now. It's
mhm,
beyond the server now. Like
yeah,
he just believes in that he is this player now, and you can
mhm,
see there's like a transition where he starts to be that player and starts to lose belief that he can be the other player in a way, and
yeah,
it's a heartbreaking scenario to watch, but it's hard because as much as I feel bad, like where's the oversight in G2? Where the big boys making the moves, calling out the plays? Like who's building the structure at
yeah.
G2?
It's not. He deserves all the scrutiny that he got, but it's not necessarily his fault. You know,
Yeah.
like why would I he's not that good of a player. G2 offers him a contract to be, and G2 is a huge organization. They weren't paying him
He
Nika
had to
money,
go for it.
obviously,
Yeah.
but
Obviously he had to go for it.
he had a decent amount of. He was probably getting decent amount of money, more than he's probably getting from Bleed. Like, um, he got a lot of money from that probably, and he got to like at least have a chance to showcase his talent. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it completely backfired on him, and I don't think he'll probably ever have a chance at like a real tier 1 team again,
Yeah.
unless
No.
Bleed makes some massive
Well,
breakthrough.
like the thing
But
is, if he wants to be on a tier 1 team again, I mean, either he does it with Bleed, I guess, but like what would actually more likely happen is he has to drop down and
yeah,
fucking battle his way through tier 2 again on like some mid rosters until he shows enough that someone wants to pick him up. It's like
yeah,
it's a sad place for a
that's
player
a
to be
tough
in his
road
career.
back.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah, but you
long
can't
road
even
back.
necessarily blame him because like he got to play on G2 with his friends and got a good paycheck. Like
Yeah.
it's not you have to blame the GM. You can't blame Nexa for accepting
It's He's in a
a good
similar
offer.
boat to Hooksy. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
Like Hooksy is also gonna have to come back with a lesser roster. His boat of Astralis just sailed away as well. So like
yeah.
his best chance of being on a tier 1 roster just disappeared, and more than likely he would have to climb back from tier 2, and that's a
I would be
whole
shocked if
road.
Hoxie made a return. If Hoxie made a return, that would be honestly, I would love it if Hoxie did make a return, just like the return of the Giga Chad.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
he's
make
got a whole meme
like
thing to him now. Yeah,
the memes would just be incredible. Like If he could
If it
actually
beats
like bring a team
Cassard's
back,
bleed or whatever,
yeah,
it's just like the
that would be
internet is broken.
fantastic. That would be fantastic. Like, I would love that.
It'd
I'd
be
love to listen to
entertainment.
Thorin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it'd be
I'd love
great
to hear. I'd
entertainment.
love to, but I don't necessarily believe in it, and
No, no.
but
The
I do
time for
think like
believing it is gone.
so. But going back to the brackets, so I would say yeah. So I'm gonna make this is how my bracket breaks down.
Okay,
Um,
shoot.
MIBR I think is gonna be M80. That's probably the closest one in my opinion in this tournament,
Yeah.
in this like quarterfinals bracket.
Yeah, sure.
So I think M80 could win that, but I'm gonna basically say that MIBR is gonna win this one. Vitality's taken out Eternal Fire, and then MIBR. So Vitality's in the finals, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're the
There's
same
no
so far.
there's no way that Vitality's not making this finals. I have to believe that G2 is gonna beat Liquid,
Right.
and basically here is where I diverge from what I want to happen from what I think is gonna happen.
Okay.
um, so what I want to happen is G2 beats Liquid
Right.
and Spirit beats Navi,
Okay.
and then G2 beats Spirit, and then G2 beats Vitality. Hopefully,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
this is what I want to happen.
Yeah.
What I think will happen is G2 beats Liquid, Navi beats Spirit, Navi beats G2, and then I think this is probably the closest one. I think it's gonna be a fantastic grand finals.
Yeah.
I think it'll be similar to what we had last time, like where it went 4 maps and it was just gripping. Like, is this gonna be a best of 5 grand
That's a
finals?
good question. I'm
I think it
actually
will be.
not
I think they're
sure.
all best of 5s now.
Okay. Let's have a look.
Um, is EPL?
It is a best of five. You are correct.
Yes. Um, yeah. So then I think I'm gonna give the edge to Navi, but I'm
Okay.
gonna say it's like a 51-49.
Okay. Oh wow, you're going that
Like I,
you're going
I, th-
percentage 1% over here.
I think it's gonna be a really close final between those two. I think they're both in really good form.
Okay.
Um, and also like just to be contrarian, like I know you're gonna say Vitality's gonna win, so
Of
I'm gonna
course.
say
Basically, I have the same prediction as your your
my my re-
analytical
my
prediction.
rational brain.
Look, the thing is rational brain is like you got to understand that sometimes you can't be rational because what happens if G2 wins and you weren't there to support them? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly. No,
Are
I'm
you really
gonna
gonna
support
back
them.
that? Are you really gonna
I'm
back
gonna support them.
the analytical take? No, I'm kidding. But sometimes you gotta go with your gut. But for
Yeah,
me, I think Vitality, like for me, it's on Vitality to prove they're number one right now because I think they are. I think Cologne was a perfect showing of who they were and what their potential is. And I think they're like in terms of what's interesting in terms of like I was talking about new rosters and being more tactical as a team, and then usually if you have a lot of egos, you're going a bit more star heavy. I think Vitality have this like perfect balance right now. Like
they seem to. Yeah,
they've got like a mostly new team, still quite moldable, but the Spinks and Zero kind of know their stars, but Zero doesn't even have the star ego, but then Apex kind of has the ego in his place a little bit. And I think they just got like a nice, real good balance right now of where
mhm,
everything's at. And then they've just got the players that I believe in
yeah,
as well. Like
and
I
then
think these
yeah,
players can fire off together and take out Navi, and I think it will be a close one again. But I'm looking for Vitality to prove to me that they are not. It's not a fluke that they beat Navi. It's they're the fucking. They're the one to beat. Okay, basically.
yeah. One of the reasons I do give the edge to Navi is because they lost last time,
Okay,
and I think
they want it more.
I think Alexi B has been scrutinizing those games ever since they ended.
Right,
Like I doubt he even slept the night that they lost. Like I think he probably just went right back to the hotel room and just started watching the demos. Like
right.
that guy wants it, and he's smart enough to figure out what they did wrong, what they need to fix.
I
And
could see that.
if they can analyze that correctly, and they can figure out, and they can look at Vitality's games and like basically beat them on the team side because Vitality definitely does have the star firepower.
Yeah.
But I think Alexi B could pull out a masterclass on in the grand finals,
Okay.
especially if they're given the confidence by beating Spirit and G2 on the way there.
Right. But if they but that's only if they beat G2, right?
Yes, which I don't
Okay.
believe they will.
No, of course. So I think it's I'm gonna say I think it's time that we move ourselves on to Act Two, which will be the present. Now I don't think it will be quite as long as the future period, because G2 and Vitality aren't in any of the next bits, for the most part. So I think where I'd like to start is we kind of touched on it before, but Astralis have gone out in astonishing fashion or tragic fashion more like, and Cadian is now in instead of Bro. Um, so first of all, let's talk about Astralis's recent games being pretty rough in this tournament. Um, they didn't even get through um at all. And now they're picking up a different player, so you can tell that this is not what Astralis wanted, right?
Yeah, the only people that they beat were Rooster.
Which, you expect a bit more from,
Yeah,
Device, Stone, Yavi,
yeah.
major
They lost
champions.
to
Like, yeah.
Fnatic, and then that put them in position to lose to Complexity, which put them in position to beat Rooster and then to lose to Complexity again.
Yeah. Yeah. But what do you think of the pickup then?
Um, I've never been the biggest fan of Cadian, mostly for his personality. He just kind of annoys me.
Okay.
Um,
Fair enough.
he just he's just annoying. But I rate everything he did in heroic. That was like a great like you can't disrespect that. No way that that was a fluke. That was pure like good tactics, good thinking, quality CS. Like
Yeah.
you have to rate what he did with heroic team. But unfortunately, he couldn't bring it elsewhere. Like once he didn't get the like once he wasn't the judge, jury, and executioner. Like when he had players in his team that like Twist, like Naf, they just they're not gonna like kneel before you. They're not gonna
Yeah.
bend the knee. They're
They're
gonna
not soldiers.
they're
Yeah.
they're gonna want at least some input in the game, which is obvious because now Twist is the fucking in-game leader.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
that guy wants to dictate how the game is going to be played. He has a image in his mind of how the game should be going and how what we should do next type thing. And he has that mind for the game, and that's not someone that vibes well with Cadian. Whereas going to Astralis, I think this could actually be a good move for him because the Danes are historically well drilled.
Yeah.
Like the whole Astralis era, that none of the, like obviously they had incredible talent, like Dupree in his prime, Magisk in his prime, Device in his prime, Zipnix is clutching, incredible. Like, but the one key piece of that Astralis team was Glaive in the terms of like he had the game plan, he had the calls, he knew exactly what was going to happen. It was almost as though he just had like he was playing poker and like the person he was playing against had like mirrored sunglasses on and he could see all their cards. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
like it
It
was
just it
ridiculous.
felt unbeatable, right? At the time
Yeah,
it was
they
a
were just
wall.
so dominant. It
Yeah.
was like I remember just loading up a game and just like knowing Astralis would win,
Yeah.
and then they would.
Yeah.
Like it was the most dominant ever. So like I think the Danes particularly just they
They
are
could suit this,
what
is what you're
they
thinking.
could suit what Cadians
See,
made for
this is
essentially.
interesting because on the most part, I agree. Like, I think Yabi and Stown are gonna be happy for this because their form has been shit since they fucking knifed this cunt in the back and bailed out. Like they just haven't been the players that they were when this
Yeah,
guy was around to tell them what to fucking do.
yeah.
And I
They've
think they're
also
kind of
paid for it.
yeah, they're
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 paid
getting
for it.
it. They're getting it now. They're getting it.
Yeah,
They don't actually have this mad vision that they think they do clearly, and
yeah.
they need
They've been
some
humbled.
they need some direction, right? But the thing I don't get is why the fuck is Device gonna give a shit about that? Like I get he wants to play structured, but he's also a player who's gonna want a lot of input. Like Device is gonna call mostly his own number, I would think. Would like I
I
mean,
can imagine him
yeah,
stepping in line. I can see him getting in line. Like he's one of like he's the guy that was like he started the heat maps thing. Like he's a guy that like he appreciates data. I don't think he cares how he wins as long as he wins.
right.
He's obviously a very talented player and he has the talent to be the top of the server, but I don't think he necessarily has like I don't think he has Nico's ego or anything like that.
I don't
Like
know. I think he's got a pretty big ego himself.
I think he has like confidence and he believes in himself, but I don't think he's like subordinate or like rude or
Okay,
like insubordinate.
yeah. No, I get you. I think like I see it, like to me, I could see it kind of go either way, but I'm more likely to lean on the side of Device will have a bit of ego, and that's going to be a bit of a tension point because I also think like it's going to be different for Cadian to call for another Orpa that like
That's what I'm worried
he's
about.
his inherent what do you call it, instinct in my opinion is going to be that he's going to try and call Device's number because he thinks he knows how to use the orb effectively in these situations to open up picks for you on T side or on and go for an opening on CT perhaps. But I actually think like Device ain't gonna fuck with that. You know what I mean? And I think Device like he's the one guy who plays well on this Astralis team like no matter what. Like he was just IGLing, so he's clearly comfortable calling his own number to go and make plays. Like it's gonna be weird for Cadian to be the rifle and not be able to call the orb. Is like a tension point I'm like interested in on this team. Now, there's a chance, as you say, like Device is not unfamiliar with playing in other people's systems and playing to the system. I'm just like, to me, it's more like, will Cadian get that buy-in? You know, is Yabi and Stown gonna be like, Device, you should listen to this guy. We think he's
Yeah.
legit, you know, or is he just kind of not really do what Cadian him to do, and then Cadian's just calling the other four players? Because to me, like Cadian wasn't really calling Cadian's game in heroic is like he's largely calling himself as well, you know. Um,
Yeah, he was calling around himself and he
right,
was making his own plays.
he's calling around himself and he's making his own plays, and I think if he's not going to get to do that and he's not going to get to use the AWP in the game like that, then it's a bit of a like how does Cadian cool without that? You know,
Yeah,
what does
I'm a bit
Cadian look
nervous
like?
for that
Yeah,
because the AWP is a big factor in that place. Because the AWP, when you're an IGL AWPer, like, not saying I have experience, I'm not a pro player, um, but rather than like being a Monacy player where you like peek into angles and you just get like 4 kills,
right.
you're essentially like segmenting the map with the AWP. Like you
Yeah,
can just hold a line and you know that no one can cross this line.
yeah,
So therefore you can call based off of that information. And you know that information because it's you doing it. And you can react immediately based off the information that you see. Like if you see 2 guys run across your scope, even if you don't hit that shot, that information is crucial for you setting up your other players around the map.
yeah.
Whereas with a rifle, if like Cadian could definitely be like they could have a great double AWP CT round setup, but
Sure.
they have to get to that point of getting it where they have enough
Right.
money to
Yeah,
afford that.
that's not consistent.
Um, but like I don't, I'm worried for Cadian's calling, and I'm worried for how he himself is going to perform
Yeah,
because obviously, a lot of his kills were on the orb, and his rifle was quite weak on heroic, even in their like prime.
yeah.
He still did have like he would get a few kills with it, but like
It's
he
not what
wasn't.
he's known for. Yeah,
It's not like he had clips with the orb. Like there were like star moments essentially that you can go up and look and find where crucial moments during the game he would make a huge play with the orb. And if
yeah.
he doesn't have that in his hands, what's he going to do?
This
So I'm
is
a bit worried for that aspect, but I
yeah.
do think that the Danes are built for a drilled system, and I think that this lineup could work functionally and have a good like structure to it. It
The
just
way
all
I see
matters
the
on.
lineup overall is I think it's like a small positive, okay? Because personally, I think they just didn't look very good. You know, they looked like first of all their players weren't playing well. Like Device is kind of the only one that's been able to be good most of the time, and even then, it's like how good? Like you know, he's not fucking Munacy. So you know that side of the game didn't look good. Like the players didn't look comfortable. I guess is where I put it. Device looked comfortable, but no one else looks comfortable in that team. And then like their T side doesn't look super like at times they have good T sides, and then their CT side just looks like really basic. They're just reacting on the fly. They're not really doing a lot of special stuff, getting a lot of information, and overall it looks a bit weak. It kind of reminds me of Virtus Pro right now in that it just looks quite flat, you know.
Okay.
Um,
Well, if I were to if I'm gonna say this team works, like let's say this team does succeed, does do well, the way I'm gonna say like I'm gonna make a prediction on like how the team would work. I
okay,
think Cadian's gonna be kind of like a probe, and what I said about like device or like an in-game leader AWPer like segmenting the map, and it doesn't really matter if they hit that shot.
right,
I think Cadian could potentially use device in the same way that he would use himself,
okay,
and then he reacts off of the device off of the information that device gives him. And it's device on the AWP rather than Cadian, so it's a lot more likely that he's going to hit the actual shot, the
right,
hard shots. He's going to hit some close angle wall bangs, maybe like he's a star player. He's device. He's been number 2 in the world many times before. Like
yeah,
he's a very skilled player. So I think they could use him as like a probe essentially. He could figure out his information in the same way that Hooksy did. I kind of
right.
where he would just like go around the map and then like
Use himself
maybe
as an entry player in that sense or
yeah,
something.
essentially. Or
Yeah,
like on the CT side, he could be like the one to walk in and like, oh, like let's say they're saying playing nuke. He could walk up ramp and just be like, oh, there's 4 guys in lobby.
right.
And then the rest of his team can work off that
See, this is
information.
where I think there's so many question marks for me as well. Like, what is Cadian with a rifle? You know,
That's what
what role is
I'm
he?
worried
What
about that.
like and the thing is, not even necessarily what role is he, because he won't get a chance to be the ideal role that he would pick for himself in this team. Like you have Yabi, you have Stown, you have Stare. Like these players are more skilled than you, and you can't take star positions over at least two of them. So, like to me, it's like I don't know what this player looks like. He's not going to be Apex. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Apex is kind of doing a lot of what you want. He's a better version of what Hooksy can do, and probably a bit looks pretty tactical as well because he can do a lot of stuff on the T side and understands how to get openings on T side a lot. But if you're trying to say Cadian's going to be somewhat like that, I'm
I
like
think a much better version, hopefully.
well, I
In like
don't
the way
yeah
that if it works.
yeah
If this is a successful Astralis team,
yeah
I'm gonna predict that he can be like a better version of Hooksy where he probably gets more kills
okay
because he is it's not surprising to say someone's more skilled than Hooksy.
yeah
Um, I think if they do have the advantage and they're winning from a lead, I think that their double orb could be very strong.
okay yeah that's something that
Um,
they could use potentially
especially on like the CT side, I think they could just like lock down areas of the map and just like Device and Cadian they're smart people. They can make predictions. They can essentially draw up a heat map in their mind of like where the potential people could be based off the information that they have.
yeah.
And then I also think that he could be like a probe if he doesn't have the orb.
Well, this is
And then device
okay.
is going to be device.
Let me bring up a
But
side thing.
I
Okay,
think
okay,
it
wait, I'll
all
let you finish.
it all depends on how much of a basically an anchor, or not anchor's the wrong word because like that's a different thing in CS. But
Yeah,
how much Ian is going to drag down this team.
yeah.
If
You
he is,
mean in the weight sense? Yeah,
yeah, in the weight sense, like if he's going to actually contribute and be a good part of this team and call properly, I think this team could do really well. But if he's just absolutely shit on the rifle and can't get anything done like a Hooksy, then this team is doomed.
okay. Yeah, so this is where I'm like, this invites the next natural question for me, which is, you know, to me, Hooksy's the other option, right? He is like, if you wanted to make a roster move for an IGL and you were a Danish team right now, you could have gone for Hooksy. And like Hooksy is maybe like the way I see it is maybe they looked at it like Hooksy's a totally known quantity in that role, whereas like Cadian at least is somewhat unknown with for potential upside. But like Hooksy was the more consistent version of what you're talking about. Hooksy already was playing that role, the bitch kind of role in the team, and being like the human flashbang, right?
Yeah,
He's there to fucking walk in, throw all his nades, die for someone else to get the trade. Like if it's essentially if that's what Cadian's here to do, like it kind of invites the question of why wouldn't you have gone for Hooksy instead? Like it was the obvious one that could do this exact thing that you're asking now Cadian to do. I kind
because
of
I
get,
think Cadian's got better calls. I
I would
think he's a
agree.
better in-game. I think he's a better
Yeah.
in-game leader, and I think he's just also more. I think he would be a better version of Hooksy, like the same category if you wanted to like put him in different categories of IGLs, but he would be an upscaled in basically all aspects.
Okay. I think
So
I
in that
think
in that
essentially,
sense,
yeah.
why would you pick Hooksy? Because I'm saying
Yeah.
like he would be an upscaled version of Hooksy. So why would you go for the Hooksy that's not upscaled?
Yeah. Well, I guess all I'm saying is him being an upscaled version of Hooksy is a gamble. It's not a fact. You know,
Yeah,
it's like it's a
yeah,
percentage. You know, you're playing some odds here because like Hooksy, that's where I'm saying like Hooksy's the known quantity in that sense. Like you know what you're getting and it's not a lot, right? So
yeah.
maybe you go for the gamble on Cadian. I also think there must be some aspect of like Stown and Yabby have played with him. They looked their best when they were
Well,
playing with
certainly, yeah,
him. You know, like it's probably a big factor too. But it's interesting because if it goes badly, like this will invite a whole lot of trouble on the premise that you could have gone for Hooksy to do this exact like role and setup for you. But yeah, I think that's okay for Astralis for now. I think we'll see how this develops, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more for us to talk about there.
yeah.
Talking about some of the matches that just happened in the tournament. Um, you know, Liquid just took out Complexity while we were recording this, basically just before. Um, yeah, give me some thoughts on that.
Dominant fashion. Well, complexity looked. We thought complexity were going to look pretty good because they beat Mouse, but with this liquid win looking so dominant, like it kind of just proves to me that Mouse beat themselves before.
Right.
So, but Liquid, I'm very happy with the game today that they played. Like their CT side on Nuke was flawless. They had a 12-0 half, like absolutely dominated them. It felt like they were just in their heads. Twist was just calling a beautiful game. Yakindar had probably the best game he's had since he was on VP.
Yeah.
Like it was an incredible game to watch. And if they can repeat it, I have big dreams for this Liquid team. I think they can go far. But the complexity loss today, this this has bigger implications than just these two teams. I think it really damns Mouse.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Because looking at the Mouse wins, what the opening game they beat Rooster. They lost the first map 13-8. Then they won the second map in overtime, double overtime. Um,
Yeah.
and then the third map they won in pretty dominant fashion, 13-6.
Yeah.
But they're also playing Rooster, who have just finished a double overtime game, and they're not that experienced. Like this is all Australian lineup, I
I
believe,
mean,
right?
that all you can say is that you're on Australis's level, and what the fuck does that mean when they just made a roster move, right? To
Yeah.
beat Rooster, I mean.
But like Rooster is like an inexperienced team. They don't get that much. They don't really get any practice. They're in Australia, I believe. So the best competition they're getting is the Asian scene.
Yeah.
And they still took a map off of you and took you to double overtime. Like
Yeah.
on Mirage, they lost on Mirage, and then they went to overtime on Vertigo. Like I would say two of Mouse's strongest maps. Like these aren't punish picks or weak maps from Mouse. They're maps you expect Mouse to beat a team like Rooster on.
Yeah.
And then moving from there, we go into a quick, or not quick, but a 2-0 from Imperial. Both maps went into overtime, so it could have gone either way. But at the end of the day, you lost two maps to Imperial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that loss to Imperial, that popped them down into a game against Complexity, which they also lost 2-0. This time, not in nearly closest fashion, 13-8, then 13-6 on Vertigo and Nuke.
Yeah.
Also two maps I would rate Mouse on. And then that game pushes them down. They beat Fnatic 2-0. Who cares about that? Like we got Crims on the team.
Yeah. He ain't Crims anymore.
Yeah, you got Crims. Blame F still good, and then Afro and Matisse.
I
Who
just yeah. Matisse is alright.
and
Matisse is good.
but then
Actually.
then you've also got Body, who I liked him when he was on G2, but
He's the IGL
I,
on that team, you know.
yeah, but either way, you beat Fnatic.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
well done. Top five team in the world, right?
And then you go straight back and lose to Complexity again.
Yeah.
This time they did get 4 more rounds over the 2 maps, so that's impressive. They did improve.
So much
But
better.
either way, they got kicked out of the tournament.
Yeah, they did get
And the
wiped.
only team that they actually beat was Rooster
You know,
and
this is where
Fnatic.
I don't know how to assess complexity. You know, in this tournament, right?
Yeah,
They lost to Liquid, which like the thing is that they beat Mouse twice and then they beat Complexity twice. Sorry,
yeah,
Complexity. Um, as in they beat Mouse twice and then they beat Astralis twice. Sorry.
yeah. That's it.
Um, not complex. Yeah. Anyway, but like it's sort of like how do you assess like the quality of those results? Like first of all, Astralis you probably assess it quite badly because they literally made a roster move after this immediately
Yeah,
to change
hmm
their team because it wasn't good enough. So okay, we're saying Astralis didn't play that well then, and I think that's fair. They didn't
yeah,
beat anyone really notable here. And then what? They beat Mao's twice, but we're saying Mao's looked like absolutely whack this tournament and nearly lost to Rooster, who even Astralis beat. So
yeah. Rooster after losing 2-1 to Mouse,
yeah,
Rooster got 2-0'd by Big. Big.
the way you said
And
it.
then the fucking so Mouse Mouse lost yeah, Mouse lost Mirage to Rooster, okay?
Yeah.
And then Rooster plays big on Mirage and loses 13-2.
It doesn't exactly look like they've got
Like
the Mirage figured out, hey?
it's not
Um,
like yeah, they haven't got it locked down or anything. It's not
no.
their
Yeah, no, definitely. But it's sort of like I don't even know what to make of complexity because they lost to Liquid, right? Who are the only team here that actually looked like they were doing anything, and then they beat Astralis twice
yeah.
and beat Mouse twice, and that's just like at this like
Yeah, so it's
any
kind of
other
like
tournament
nothing.
that like Mouse at least would mean something, but even like you know even at a fucking pro league, beating Mouse apparently doesn't mean anything here. Like
Yeah.
so like what complexity kind of got the illusion of like that they're maybe punching upwards and a team on the rise, but like I just still don't believe it. Like to
Yeah.
me, it's just a Liege, and then like where's the other who else is coming? Like what fucking in
The,
that fucking Liquid game they got absolutely shit on. The Liege was the only person that was even vaguely doing anything,
yeah.
and it's just like yeah
The thing for me is that it kind of shows that when Complexity plays a team that's playing badly,
yeah
the other players around Elige can step up.
right
But as soon as it actually gets to like decent competition, like Liquid, then all those other players around Elige fall off, whereas he just stays in the same position.
yeah
Like looking at the games, like it's just ridiculous. Like they can't. It just kind of proves to me that the people around Elige do not deserve to be around Elige. Like they could be decent tier 2 players. Like they could be like winning the tier 2 tournaments,
yeah
but they're not allowed to play with a liege, in my opinion. Like, you don't deserve to sit next to him. You don't deserve to like rub that bald head after a round win or before the game for good luck.
fuck's
Like,
sake
like
yeah
it's not
it's
it's not
clearly not
fair.
giving them good luck anyway like
Yeah, it's not fair to a liege to like surround him with these players. They're
no
just not good enough for him.
no
And complexity either needs to just pull their money out and just spend money and actually invest in a liege, or sell him and get good fucking money.
yeah
Like if you're gonna remain in this like lower end, reaching into tier 1, top of tier 2, then sure, sell a liege, make your money, keep your organization running, get another guy that's like on the up and coming, and then you can sell him again. You can be like Mao's used to be.
yeah
But right now, this is just like this in between, like trying to like LARP as a tier 1 team is just ridiculous. Like
yeah Well, it's a
You have
waste.
a
It's a total
yeah.
waste. Like you
They have a
actually
legion.
have a
That's it.
player that can be here and fuck with the big boys, and it's just like, where's anyone here to help him? Like he's just dying
Yeah,
out there on his ass, like totally on his own. Like, and you get these flashes where they beat teams that you don't expect them to beat. I would say, like even in this tournament, you can say they're in bad form, but like you should expect
yeah,
Astralis to have more skill. You should expect Mouse to be a much better team. Like they can still take the occasional wins, but they can't take the wins that fucking matter, can they? Like,
yeah,
to get to the fucking playoffs, to be in the round of eight, they just fucking shit the bed against Liquid completely. Lige is the only one that's looking vaguely competent and is ripping what little exists of his hair out. His fucking meta hair is getting
yeah,
pulled out of his fucking head the way
yeah.
he's
It's a good
losing
thing
these
he doesn't have
games.
any anymore.
Well, exactly. It'd be gone anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
like
there's no keeping it with the way fucking his life is going right now. Like, fucking hell, mate. So yeah, it's. I think complexity. I think the real pity would be if complexity thought this was good enough. Because this should be the signs that it isn't good enough. When you take two names that are shitting the bed and a very questionable new team in Liquid, like you should be. You've got all the fucking experience as a team in the world by now. If you're not gonna beat them now, you like a new team can just come along and trash you. Is what that means. And it's not happening. So pick up someone that fucking matters and let's see Elige get out of fucking jail.
yeah. Like they seem to me on the same level as like they're like a slightly above M80.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Like they're
how
not.
is that even possible? You know what I
It's
mean?
ridiculous.
M80 is in the playoffs for fuck's sake. Like,
Yeah,
where the
you
fuck are
have a
you?
man. You have a guy that's like in contention for the like number one NA player.
Yeah,
Like it depends on who you ask. It's either him or Twist.
right.
And like you're doing this at tournaments.
Yeah.
Like they just can't win any meaningful game. When was the last time that they beat a team that was actually in good form and was a good team? Like
I mean, it's rare. I mean, start of CS2 at least. All right, I think it's let's move on. I mean, Spirit beat Imperial as well. Very recently today. Um, I'm not sure I care that much. I mean, I would expect Imperial to lose. Well done to making it to this game. I think you beat people that I didn't expect you to beat, but you're supposed to lose to Spirit, and um, Spirit to me should always win that game. Was it even particularly close? First map was close. Second map was an absolute thrashing. Eternal Fire 2-1 Mongols. A decent game, honestly. I think unfortunate for Mongols that they don't make it through. Would have been quite impressive to make a playoff run here, and they also just missed out in Cologne as well, so you got to feel a little bad for them. But they look like a competent team, sitting around probably just outside the 10th spot of the world right now. I'd say maybe somewhere in that 10 to 14 range, somewhere like that. But overall, very competent team, and it's I've been loving the storyline of this team for a long time now. I think it's really cool that somehow Mongolia is the powerhouse of Asia in CS, and they look like they keep getting better bit by bit. So curious to see, if they can do a little better soon, and make some playoffs, and I think that'll be very impressive for them. Um, and then Internal Fire, you know how it is. It's the Xantares show. And Xantares carries them against the Mongols as well, just to bring them through. An excellent player. I mean, I respect him for playing with the Turkish scene, but I think if you're a big team and you want to be taken seriously, he's got to be a name you consider for picking up because his skill is undeniable. And more, like these days compared to when he first came on the scene, he's just legit on LAN as well. Like back in the day, he was like an online demon and stuff, but then he came to LAN and he was having some performance issues. And then with that big team, he was doing much better at LAN, but I'd say he still had his moments where he kind of disappeared. But I think we're seeing a player now that just doesn't really ever disappear. And I think so many top teams could use him, like the way he plays as well. Like he's such a win condition in these games, man. And I don't know. If he stays with the Turkish guys, I get it, and it's cool. But I could see he's like a Serato. He could just be on so many better teams right now, and like be contending titles. So I secretly always hope that he does it because I'd love to see it. MIBR beat Heroic. I'd say I was pretty surprised about this. I wouldn't necessarily say Heroic had the most stellar run here, and obviously they really screwed themselves right at the start of the tournament because this is where they had the snap tap thing with Tessus, I believe, and it
Yeah.
cost them a map that they lost the series for. So they're probably beating themselves up a little, but I think they should have had a chance here. But honestly, I would say that they kind of got flattened on that last map, which is supposed to be somewhat equivalent. Um, and really, the stars didn't turn up. Um, Shush was the highest rated player for heroic. Tessus was second, Nertz was third, and Degster is fourth. And you just can't have that if you want to win, make it through. I don't think there's too much to analyze. In terms, obviously, it's very impressive for MIBR, but if these players are going to play like that, then no fucking wonder they lose. I don't know if you got anything to add to that.
One second. I'm not sure if it was the MIBR game that the thing messed up.
What's up?
It was the NIP game that Tess has.
Yes, yeah.
Keep.
Sorry, no. For the Snapchat thing, it was the first game NIP. Yeah, but
Yes.
the most recent game, Nuts and Dexter just weren't even in the server really against MIBR, and you definitely needed it if you wanted to make playoffs. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I haven't been paying huge amount of attention to Heroic, but ever since Cadian left, they haven't seemed to even come close to that form.
I mean, they showed a glimpse with Nuts at the start. I still believe that this roster with Dexter can be a lot better. I think they can be a top 10 team in my view, kind of cutting into that upper half perhaps as well. In on their day, but they're not at it yet, and they really haven't had like a lot of like actual prestige games in LAN to show it. So because Dexter's had a lot of visa problems, it seems. So this is kind of like the first real showing for them in a way. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but that last game, they just neither Dexter nor Nuts turns up, and you absolutely need them. In every game, they're your win condition, right? If they're not the top of your team, it's usually a loss, and it showed up that way this time as well. Um, if you got anything to add, feel free. If not, I'm gonna move
No,
on.
I didn't really watch that game,
Okay,
so
well, I'm gonna move on to a game that I know you did watch. FaZe versus Complexity.
ooh.
Complexity managed to beat FaZe, knocking them out of this tournament, which is such a big deal, man. It's such a big deal. Like FaZe need every win they can get right now. They want to keep this team together and the dream alive, and it's such a blow. I feel like to lose to Complexity, who we just said didn't necessarily beat a lot of people that were in good form, which kind of also would suggest that FaZe were not necessarily in any kind of god form either.
Yeah, and looking at it, if you look at I think it's Anubis. Yeah, I'm looking at Anubis right now. If you look at the ratings for the players, Frozen and Robs are both top of the server for ratings.
Yeah,
Frozen on Anubis put up a 1.58. Robs put up a 1.38. But then it goes Grim 1.37, JT 1.36, Elige 1.04, and then Floppy 0.95.
yeah,
Like, and then from there it's like Brokey had a decent game 0.92, but then Rain and Kerrigan way down at the
nowhere.
bottom,
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I
nowhere to
mean,
be found.
Brokey had a pretty bad game too. I watched a
Yeah.
bit of this for sure, and what I remember is like Robson Frozen definitely got good numbers and definitely played well, and you would expect it to be well enough to win this game, but they actually didn't win that many of the clutches that they were in. Um, or as in they got a lot of kills in clutches they didn't win is the way I would put it.
Mhm.
Um,
Like exit
so
frags
like a
essentially.
little bit exit frags and a bit inflated at times. Not massively so. They definitely performed well this game. I'd say Brokey was missing quite badly here though. And I wouldn't say Brokey's been on any kind of heater form recently, even though he has been this year. Right now he isn't, and it's a problem. I would say he's definitely he's a big game player, but you also rely a lot on your AWP for a certain ability to deliver and to punish, and I don't think it was there. And then obviously Ray and Carrion having a bit of a nightmare game here, and giving up a lot of kills. Yeah, definitely a pretty pretty dark days for FaZe.
Yeah, I
Once
don't know what their future looks like.
I don't know either. Have they lost to Saw the first round of the playoffs last in Cologne? They lost here, not even reaching the playoffs, and getting 2-0'd whilst they're at it, like they did against Saw actually. And it just feels like I don't know. They tried to shift gears and to reinvigorate the energy into phase, and it felt like at times when you're watching them in the start of these tournaments, it was working a little bit, and then they reach these games that you kind of just expect them to win, and they don't win them. I don't know. Maybe you don't expect phase to necessarily beat complexity as much these days. Complexity isn't a terrible team, but against Saw, you definitely expected them just to run away with it, and it'd be like, oh, you know, Vitality phase in that semi final, and way more exciting a prospect. Could this be the tournament that phase wins? But no, they don't even make it to Vitality. And then in here, that I don't know what people were thinking. Maybe people weren't expecting too much from them given their recent form, but I expected them to be Complexity. To me, Complexity should be the much more flawed team.
For
Um,
me personally, it was a huge shock that FaZe didn't beat them,
yeah,
even though I'm like very much aware that they're not in their best form right now. I figured FaZe's 80% could beat Complexity's 100.
yeah.
So I don't even know what happened there. It felt like FaZe played it like 20, 30.
It feels like FaZe might be up for a roster move soon. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
feel
a
like
scary prospect to me because I feel like it's really hard to judge and make the right move in FaZe. Like, you can't. I don't know. Can you? I don't think you can cut Rops or Frozen. Okay,
oh no,
maybe
they're
maybe
both
you
too
could
good.
have argued Rops like a month ago. You definitely can't cut Rops now, and I think even a month ago when he was playing like shit, it would have been a terrible decision.
It might be time for Rain to go.
The way I see
If
it
you
is you got three choices. I think you could go Carrigan. I kind of objectively think anyone that thinks that is wrong though, unless you
yeah,
get like
no.
Shui or like Apex or something, or I don't know, Alexi B. But like unless you're going for
Yeah,
like basically an equivalent as like elite level IGL, like it's just never the right move.
yeah, no.
Um, and then like so that kind of leaves it as Rain and Brokey, and it's like it's really hard to go either way on that. Like
Yeah.
I feel personally like Roki is the more replaceable player. Um, I think I don't know. I would say Brokey has been like major X factor for Phase for a long time. Like when he's on his game, he has such a like crazy style. He can just win you games outright. But in the same way he can win you games, I think he can lose you games as well. And like because his style is so crazy, he can lose a lot of opportunities, which was fine when Rops could just clutch everything out every fucking time. But I just that isn't what FaZe is right now, and I think Brokey is a replaceable piece. The thing is like again, you still need a very strong player to replace him. Like, but I think there are players that could replace him. Is what I'm trying to say, and it doesn't have to be like Ziru or Monasi or Shiro. There are players like probably in the third to eighth best Orper in the world that could probably replace Brokey in his role. I They wouldn't deliver the impact, but they could maybe deliver a better floor, which is definitely what FaZe want right now. Because then I think I go to Rain, right, and he's definitely a replaceable option. He's older as well. Like you can't think he has that much like left on his career, but like he still delivers like 1 in 3 or 4 tournaments. He's just gonna be like your best player for like a series, and like a fucking difficult series. And he plays like he's not a very resource intensive player, and he still can have like really, really unplayable impact at times in these roles. I would say he's not super consistent in it, but what player could you get that does that? I think there's, I think the list is really short. Is the problem?
Yeah,
Which players
unless
can
they can
deliver
pick
that
up.
kind of impact in that role ever? They can be consistently a bit better, but can they actually be like, game breaking for
Yeah,
a
it
series?
just I don't even know what the right move would be, but it does seem like they need a shake up at least.
Yeah.
Just like they just seem a bit flat. They don't seem that like passionate right now. They don't have the drive to win in the same way that like classic phase does, where you can never count them out.
Yeah. One of the things I'll say about Brokey, sorry, because I said he was the more replaceable player, and I don't want to like represent myself because I still think he's fucking difficult to replace. And one of the things I think that's really underrated about him is just he's just got ice in his veins. Do you know what I mean? Like he'll be in like a clutch situation that's just like not even really feasible to win, and he'll just like the nuke 4K, okay, the 1v4 nuke with the orb. I forget. I think it was against Heroic or something. But he just shits on people, and he can play clutches, and he's just not scared. There's so few authors that have those traits, so it's not like he's easily replaceable. But I do think in terms of building floor, he is not a good piece to build a stable floor around because he's a super up and down player. He has very good periods of form where he will be world beater, and then he has periods of form where he's not there. And I don't know if FaZe need it. I think FaZe could be so much more, you know, consistent with a floor raiser or someone that's just going to deliver consistent numbers. And then you got like Rops can also be a very clutch player. Frozen is also a very clutch player. People that can do things in clutch situations. It's like they almost have like a bit too much of that right now, and then Brokey isn't finding the impact. But honestly, I think it's so hard to choose any player. To me, those ones are more replaceable than the others, and then also currently in their form are more replaceable than the others. But they could Brokey could be easily a move where you get rid of him and try and upgrade him. Your team stays around the same level, and he just suddenly is great again, and you regret it immediately. But I don't know where else to go on this team.
Yeah, I don't know. If you like put a gun to my head and say kick one of them, I would say Rain, but
Yeah, I understand that.
I I don't even know if that would be the right move. Like he's like that just goes based off of like recent form, his age. Like I don't think he's not a player that you can invest in for the next 2 3 years. You
That's
know.
true.
So
Eventually, his time runs out. Yeah,
if they could replace him with some like younger, more passionate, like drive, want to win, hasn't yet won type of person, then I think that could be the shakeup the phase needs.
yeah,
But who that person is, I don't know.
yeah, yeah. That's the million
But they,
dollar question, right?
yeah, they just need a, like a slap in the face. Like they need to wake up essentially.
Yeah. Is there anything else on the route to the playoffs that we've yet to talk about? Um, I mean, Virtus Pro went out completely flat, which honestly I would want to say I'm surprised, but I'm not at this point. Um, Against Heroic, Liquid lose to Vitality, not necessarily surprised. Fury beat Red Canids, not necessarily surprised. I think for the most part we've covered the route to playoffs from the end of the groups. So I think it's time to take us on to the final part of this show, which will be the past. And for us this time, we'll just be talking about Group C and D because we covered Groups A and B in the last episode because of the way that the ESL groups happen. But we'll largely be talking about some of what we said would happen and what didn't happen and everything like that. So let's have a peeky peek at what's going on here.
Well, starting with Group C, I remember myself. I said that Mouse is a lock. So
Yeah, we were. I mean, it was
I
pro
was
league as
wrong
well.
about
You
that.
so expect them to be able
Yeah,
to
like this is
yeah.
their home.
This is literally their home. They live here, dude. They literally won the last one. They're not even gonna make it through.
Yeah, and also like looking at their group, they had an easy group. Like
Yeah,
they had Rooster, Big, Imperial, Complexity, MAT, Fnatic, and Astralis.
no one
Like
should be even fucking near them.
Mouse should be at least like in the world rankings. Like what? Like
What,
it's
they
ridiculous.
fifth or something?
Mouse are fifth, Rooster is 68th, Big are 19, Imperial's 24, Complexity's 12, M80's 23, Fnatic's 26, Astralis is 13. So out of all these teams, they are the only ones in the top 10,
Yeah. Yep.
with Complexity being the closest at 12.
And I think what's really just like worrying or weird, maybe more than worrying, I'm not necessarily that worried, but what's weird about it is Mao's are the team with like one of the best floors in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How often do Mao's just get dumpstered out of a tournament by nobodies? I feel like Mao's are the team that beat everyone that's worse than them and consistently lose to a lot of the teams that are better than them. You know, and I think it's a real weird one because to get absolutely dumpstered and not even make it through the groups against not necessarily anything scary in terms of opposition either. Um, just beggars belief. What does this spell for Mao's in the next couple months? What does it mean for their run at the major? Maybe in a sense, this could be a good thing and a wake up call to the fact that things aren't okay in Mao's. Maybe it could go the other way, and it's like a mental burden that they're gonna have to go into the next games with. It's hard to say. Like, they're a young team, they could take it either way, really, but it's definitely a pretty strange one. Um, from this team because we're used to them breaking under pressure, but we're definitely not used to them just losing outright in the early stages of tournaments against teams
Like
they should easily beat.
repeatedly as well.
Yeah,
This wasn't one of those bullshit formats where you lose 2 games and you're out. They
they had
lost.
so many chances. Yeah,
They lost one, two. Yeah, they lost 3 best of 3s.
yeah,
Like
against lower ranked teams in all of them.
against much worse opposition.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I think one thing I'll say is we've yet to see a fall like this from Mao's in recent time. Like, they've definitely got a lot more rope in that sense. But I think if you were a Mao's player and you were able to take solace in the fact that you were making semis consistently and losing to champions or
Mm.
the best teams in the world, like, where's the solace in this loss?
There
You're
is
not
there is
losing
one
against the best here.
there is one silver lining in that they brought Imperial to overtime on both of those maps.
Yeah, but
So
that
if they had won those maps, they would be going into the upper final against M80,
right, and would have made it through much further at least.
which would automatically put them in the quarterfinals. They wouldn't have even played yet.
If they win, I think it also
Yeah, if
puts
they
them.
had beaten M80.
Yeah,
So like that game against Imperial, if that goes the other way, we could be singing a completely different tune.
yeah,
But
true.
that's not the world we live in. They lost
And
those games
also,
and they lost a few more
who
afterwards.
is Imperial to put pressure on Mao's sport? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
they're the fifth best team in the world. What kind of pressure is supposed to be being exerted by the 20 whatever 22nd, 25th,
24th.
24th best team in the world? Like, it's clear which one should feel the pressure in that scenario. And Mao's weren't even playing for their tournament life yet, and that you know how can you give excuses for pressure
Yeah.
for Miles here? I feel like really it's not acceptable, and way below what you expect. And this should be mentally a big shake up for the team, one way or another. It's got to be on your mind. That you're better than these people, these teams that you lost to, and that you should have been fighting for championship, not to go to playoffs and
Yeah.
fail. Um, Definitely a big shock. As I say, a lot of rope for Mao's. Very young team, early in their trajectory, but still a bit concerning, a bit disappointing, as they often are. I would say, just even more so than normal.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, definitely a big upset there. Yeah. So take us through the rest of it, Ted.
Well, we have Complexity making it to at least playoffs, which was
Okay.
nice to see, but then the loss to Liquid kind of like
Yeah, cost them the playoff
and
spot there. Yeah.
but then the loss to Liquid and like in the dominant fashion that it was, and then looking back at the games, because like after the group stage was over, I was like quite impressed. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
Complexity, they beat Mouse twice. Like and they beat
Astralis. Yeah.
yeah, like I was like, oh wow, this is like good showing for Complexity, and then they completely got dominated on their map pick, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
They
I
got
mean,
dominated on both maps, but
what's
like,
interesting is like the resume looks insane because like they took out FaZe, Mouse, Astralis to fight against to get to Liquid to fight for playoffs. But like I don't know, like at least I would say Astralis and Mouse were total paper tigers here. Okay, totally paper tigers. Like, you know, Mouse just weren't the team that we know, and Astralis literally break up immediately after this. So
mhm,
you know, Paper Tigers, and then like FaZe, it's debatable. Like FaZe was obviously definitely playing their best that they got right now. Okay, they needed to win this. They want it really bad. It's been looking so rough for them. You know, you gotta believe that they fucking want it right now. But are they also a paper tiger? It's definitely debatable, right?
yeah, they've looked quite flat in the last few years, the last few weeks at least. So
Yeah, and you know maybe not as flat as they had been, but not back either. So it's like, where do you, what do you like rate FaZe as? I don't rate them as some sort of world beater right now. I think they're not able to show that to us right now. And easily they could. I think they could have won this game, the series against Complexity. I know it's a 2-0, but you know, FaZe are going to be beating themselves up that they didn't win that one for sure. So they're not necessarily in best form, and then they lose to Liquid, and Liquid are on a bit of a heater, admittedly, right now. But I would say you'd still um, expect a team that beat Astralis, Mouse, and FaZe to beat Liquid. So if they were actually playing in their best form, so it's a bit underwhelming that they don't.
yeah, it
Um,
kind of feels like Complexity stayed where they were, and
yeah,
everyone else dropped down below them, rather than Complexity like making drastic improvements or anything like that.
yeah, it's true. I think some of the surprises that we didn't expect was M80 making it through. We obviously had them lose to Complexity in the opening round matchups as well. I don't know, solidly impressed by this team. You know, Lake looks like a very good player. They made Complexity look pretty bad in that game, and the Liege didn't turn up, so maybe you know, I don't know, can't really win without a Liege in a sense, but at the same time, I'm surprised. I didn't think M80 had this much firepower or this much ability left over from losing their best player. I don't know. It's not the same storyline, but it's kind of like Frozen leaving Mouse and then Mouse getting better. You know, it's surprising. Like you don't expect it. Definitely. You
Certainly,
expect a regression, not an advancement, and this is certainly an advancement to make it to the playoffs. A big deal for this team, I'm sure.
oh, definitely, yeah, yeah. They very much impressed me, especially like with the loss of Malbs because he was a huge part of their team before. Like the whole thing was structured around him. So the fact that they can bounce back like this and, as you said, improve rather than like recede, it's very impressive.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, to me, it's got to be these guys are stepping up. You know, they understand that the one carrying all the responsibility walked out the door, and now each of them is trying to shoulder up a little bit more themselves. And I think it means that overall they look like a bit more of a complete team, like not so much of a one trick actually, as they were, in my opinion as well. But definitely like not a performance you'd necessarily expect. We'll have to see if M80 can keep good form going, or if this is a Cinderella storyline. But very impressive to see them make it through, regardless. Um, who else did we talk about last week, Ted?
Well, we obviously called Vitality making it through.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, they're
If we're
still gonna
moving on
win
to
the
Group D,
tournament, Ted. So
because I think we've pretty much covered Group C.
yeah,
Yeah, so we called Vitality winning the tournament or winning their groups, coming out, going automatically to the quarters.
yeah.
That was set and came true. We prophesized it,
Prediction gods. That's why they call us the
of course.
Oracle. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a genius call. No one else could have done
no one
it.
else.
But then I'm quite impressed with Liquid actually taking a map off of Vitality
Yeah, same actually.
on Anubis as well, which I would say is one of Vitality's best maps.
Yeah,
I think they're quite solid on that map. That's one
they're
of their
very
home
good on
maps.
that map. Yeah,
And they got kind of bodied on Nuke, but that I would say I'd say that is Vitality's best map right now.
yeah.
Would you
I
say?
mean, I could say an argument for
They
Mirage
pick it
as
quite a
well.
lot.
I think Mirage is one of the, because I don't know if you remember, but at Cologne, Navi and Vitality were fighting to keep their streak of Mirage, and then Vitality beat Navi on it. So I'd say they're clearly the best team in the world on Mirage. So I would maybe say it's that, but Nuke, like
Okay.
I would say it's definitely one of
Well,
their strong maps. But
Vitality picked Nuke over Mirage when they had the option to.
they against teams like they think have a much lesser map pool, they'll tend to pick into weaknesses a lot more.
Mhm.
It's when they're feeling confident, they tend to
Yeah,
pick into weakness, but they're definitely one of the best on Nuke. It's just that maybe like Spirit would be an equivalent equation to them. You know, like there's a few teams that could contend for being the best on.
but then, so yeah, so they won Anubis obviously 13-10. It was
Yeah.
close enough game. They got kind of bodied on Nuke. But then moving on to Dust 2 was actually a kind of a close game. They made it contentious.
In
Um,
fact, Vitality's best map might be Dust 2 as well. Zero is the best player in the world on Dust 2.
yeah. So that's a map that they're very very good on.
Yes.
And Liquid brought it to 9-13. At one point it was 9-10, and then Vitality ran away with it.
Right.
Um, but so they made the first and last map. They won the first map. They made the last map contentious. The last
Definitely a
two
good
maps
showing.
are probably, I would say, at least two of Vitality's top three maps. Like those are their home maps. They love playing them whenever they can.
Yeah.
And Anubis is definitely still up there. Anubis might even be number four. Like
Yeah, it's definitely no joke to take Vitality to
so,
three maps and make it close for sure.
yeah. So I'm very impressed with Liquid from what I've seen. Um, Virtus Pro disappointing, but I'm not really upset by it. They beat Red Canids, lost to Liquid,
Yeah.
beat Falcons, and then they beat Furia, and that was it. Did they go through? Were they in the
No,
playoffs?
Canids. Is
No,
that
VP.
oh Virtus Pro? No, they are not through. They went out to I forget who. Let me check it. Um sorry, a bit slow.
Yeah, how did they go out?
I think they
Oh, they
lost.
lost to Heroic.
Yeah,
Heroic.
Heroic, that's it. And then Heroic lost against oh who did they lose to? Was it Complexity?
Maybe. No, Complexity didn't beat them.
No, they beat FaZe, sorry.
Yeah.
Who did Heroic
So they
lose
did
to?
make it to playoffs.
No, because playoffs are the 8 teams we talked about at the start. There's 2 rounds before playoffs after groups at the moment.
Oh, okay. I thought it was all playoffs. I
No,
thought the
I mean
games
it's weird. It's like the ESL
was the
stage
phase Liquid
format.
game not playoffs?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
Well, I mean it depends what you count as playoffs. To me, playoffs is like quarterfinals, semi-final, finals. But it's like if I'm sure they call it the playoffs. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's play. Yeah, they went out in playoffs round one,
yeah.
and
I mean yeah,
then
sure they made that.
Heroic lost to MIBL.
Yeah.
So they were disappointing. But I'm also not expecting that much from them. They've looked shit at the last few tournaments.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and then after that, so Group D still. Where'd it go? Yeah, and then other than that, I don't like. I'm impressed with Liquid. Vitality did what I expected them to do. Fury and Falcons both. Eh.
Yeah. I think Fury did okay. I think they did okay because they lost to Spirit, I think, which is a little bit unfortunate to have to play early in the playoffs.
They lost to Vitality.
Did they? They lost to Spirit later, I think. No?
I'm looking at Group D still.
Oh
So
yeah,
their
yeah,
opening matchup was versus Falcons. They beat
yeah,
Falcons 2-1. Then they lost to Vitality 2-0. And then they beat Red Canids 2-1. And then they lost to VP 2-1.
yeah. I think
And then in the last chance, they beat Red Canids, which sent them to the playoffs round one.
yeah, and then I think in the playoffs they faced Spirit either in the first or the second round, and then they lost against Spirit, which is a bit unfortunate. I'd say Fury. I think Fury had a chance to go much deeper here, but they didn't have running into Spirit was just you know a bit unlucky early in the
Mhm.
playoffs. when you expect Spirit to be a bit further through. Um, but yeah, overall, not a terrible performance from Furia. A bit disappointing. They certainly don't look leagues above anyone else in Brazil, which is what you would hope, but not absolute devastation. Which is more like the usual MO of Furia in recent times. I feel like, um, apart from like Cologne play-ins, I guess they made that, which is somewhat an achievement, I suppose. Anything else from Group D?
No, other than that, I'd say Group D went about as I would expect it to.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think then in that case, we've covered everything we wanted to. A little bit of an extra long episode than the other one, but I'm sure it's been an interesting one for people to watch, I hope. And hope we should be seeing you again shortly. Perhaps for a live version, which we will have to see about. But
Yeah,
we will
in
probably
person.
be seeing you next week. Talk about what happened in the quarters, semis, finals, and why Vitality is the best team in the universe. Almost certainly. So yeah, we'll leave it off there. And thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and that stuff all helps us. So thank you very much.
All right. Adios.